The ecosystem pond evolved significantly during the spring, with many developments in and around the environment, especially with the wildlife. Various species of frogs migrated here to breed, with American toads being successful. Thousands of tadpoles now swam throughout the water alongside the goldfish. I also started making recreational areas around the pond, which would serve as the foundation for some of the most essential features of the landscape. Meanwhile, the eastern Phoebe were busy caring for their second brood of the season. These 5 eggs developed into healthy young birds, but their journey was just beginning. From the safety of the nest, they chirped for their parents to bring food, who happily obliged. They flew back and forth in the pond's airspace for weeks, collecting available insects. They'd track prey from a perch, collect it, and land on a different one to inspect the surrounding areas. Once the coast was clear, they'd fly to the nest, feed the babies, and repeat. This commotion continued for hours daily as they grew, which happened quickly because of all this hard work. Only days earlier, they hardly had the strength to move. Now they were extremely alert, and becoming ever aware of the world that waited beyond the confines of the nest. What once cradled them with ease was now struggling to contain these energetic nestlings. It was in luck though, because the curiosity of what lay beyond could no longer be avoided. A brave one made its way out onto the downspout, with another just behind, but in an instant, the second one dropped to the ground. Petrified by what just occurred, the first refused to jump and hunkered down near the nest, while the others scanned the horizon for their parents. Eventually, the distraught bird made its way back into the nest, where the 4 remained until the next day. Once eager to feed their young, the Phoebe were now calling out from the roof and a tree near the woodline, attempting to lure the fledglings out of the nest. At first, they were unsure, but as the day went on with minimal interaction from their parents, they became restless. Eventually, this one gained the courage to hop out onto the downspout, where it attempted to gain attention. It just wanted its parents, but couldn't help but test its wings before inevitably gliding to the ground. It was unsure of its new surroundings and completely alone, but not for long. 2 of its siblings dropped down right after. With the 3 of them now on the ground, Mom and Dad chirped non-stop as a distraction and to lure the fledglings into the woods. I assumed they were on high alert from my presence, but then I realized there was a predator overhead, a hawk. Occasionally they fly over the pond to scope out the scene and must have kept tabs on this nest. I was relieved it didn't appreciate my presence though, because after circling for a few minutes, it soared off into the distance. No doubt it would have seized the opportunity if I hadn't been around. With the looming danger out of sight, the parents calmed down, which caused the babies to disperse. One flew into the grass where it sat for a while, nervous to continue its journey. Then this little one mustered up the strength to fly, but only briefly. It clung to the house, unsure of its next step. Mom was sure to stop by a few times for encouragement. Once it knew what to do, it flew into the woods, with its parents and the one from the grass following behind. The other was much slower, and didn't appear to have the flying prowess of its siblings. It hopped along the house, calling for its parents between each step. All the while, the 5th and final bird remained in the nest. It hatched many days after the others, and wasn't ready to go just yet. The landscape was always intended to be a crucial component of this pond, but it was still far from complete. I was finally making steps toward the ultimate goal though. I cut the anchored posts in the seating area, which were the footers for benches that would sit around this fire pit. These are only of minor importance. It's the area behind the benches where I really had to put my focus. Luckily, I had just enough bricks left over from the retaining wall inside the pond to create another one here. This would frame everything in, help with erosion, and allow for additional features by reducing the grade of the hillside. I did the same in other locations with a few large boulders and a segment of an oak tree. Then I regraded everything accordingly before adding geotextile, which would help with long-term erosion. The purpose of this area, and what it would soon become, is a pollinator garden of sorts. With the stage set, I just needed a lot of plants. Most are natives, with a few select non-natives, and items directly from my yard. The process of adding them all took several days. Typically I'd plant much denser than this, but I have to consider how large these plants will become, and leave room for others I couldn't get now. Either way, it was already starting to work, because butterflies were flocking to the milkweed. I noticed there were way more green frogs now too, all of which were inhabiting different niches throughout the pond. This large male was attempting to court a female or fighting over territory. I'm unsure which. In either case, it persistently followed the other one around the outskirts of where it resides. A development occurred with the deer as well, because now they had fawns. There were 2 moms, each with a pair of babies. It's funny because the adults just wanted to graze in peace, and although the babies would nibble on things here or there, they appeared to be more interested in playing with their friends. That was until Mom told them it was time to continue traveling. The Phoebe were doing something similar with this little one as well. They fed it for 5 additional days before deciding on this wet and rainy day it had enough. As with its siblings, they simply stopped coming to the nest to encourage it to leave. Eventually it got the hint and left the nest, landing near the top of the pond. Soaked and visibly unsure of its surroundings, it decided the best thing to do was take a bath. Like the others, it slowly made its way to the woods as instructed by its parents. Inching closer and closer to safety, Mom couldn't help but sing her song as if to say my job is complete. While this young one sat and observed the unfamiliar landscape, the Phoebe sounded a few more times before swooping down to say goodbye. They both disappeared in the woods, where they would remain for the rest of the season until migrating south for the winter and returning to the pond next spring to breed. In their absence, the flying insects were free to do their thing again, especially the pollinators. After adding some of the plants to their garden, I came up with another idea. That began by undoing some of the work from before. I pulled back the liner to access the soil, moved some plants, and excavated a square-shaped hole. Then I tamped the base to remove inconsistencies. However, I had to check its level to understand how to proceed. Adding sand to the low spots made it easy to level out a foundation for pavers. I lined these and filled the gap around the edges with gravel. Placing geotextile over this would protect the liner from being punctured. Luckily, I had a lot of scrap pieces from past projects and just had to cut this one to fit. I did my best to conform this to the sides of the hole before adding more geotextile and a series of milk crates. These would elevate hardscape material above a water reservoir to create a fountain. It was nearly a perfect fit, with the back being taller than the front. That said, I peeled back the liners to fill the void space with soil, making things very stable. A few hundred feet from the pond is my creek, where I went to collect some things. I've had this driftwood on the side for safekeeping for quite a while now. I knew it would be perfect for this. I needed a few stones as well. With these items, I could turn this odd-looking structure into something incredible. I began by covering the crates with fabric to retain smaller elements. I rolled the largest stone on top, using it as a starting point. The driftwood fit perfectly around this, followed by a few smaller rocks. This wouldn't require a lot of flow, so this little pump was perfect. However, I had to cut a hole in the crate to gain access. To facilitate the desired effect, I added a liner under the top stone so it draped over. I then filled the gaps with expanding foam, which I hid with moss. After filling a void with small stones, it was ready for water and thus a test run. This was all pretty close to what I envisioned, it just required more details. I added more foam, pea pebbles, and moss to finalize the feature's interior. Then I removed the excess liner along the edges and backfilled to create a seamless integration with the surrounding landscape. This stump also helped with that. I adjusted some of the existing plants to better match this new layout before adding new ones to the surrounding areas. The purpose of this fountain was to create a drinking area for insects, with things like butterflies in mind. The pond doesn't really include those features because the falls are quite turbulent. My instinct is usually to include as much flow as possible, but I had to dial it back for this one. The goal is to dampen the stones and mosses to create safe resting areas. I knew having this all in close proximity to their garden would be beneficial too. That and the surrounding landscape was far from complete and had to mature significantly, but even like this it made the space appear more full. Plus the pollinators were already using it all. I knew adding these features would change the ecosystem's dynamic, but I had no idea what it would look like until it did. Everything was about to change in the pond as well. All of that and more as this series nears its conclusion. See you next time, Serpa Squad.